Welcome to the Roaming Yeti podcast, where we share stories and tips to inspire you to roam your neighborhood and the world. I'm your host and head Yeti, Beth Scalacci. In today's episode, I speak with Mitch Lynch about Egypt. Mitch is a distinguished solution engineer at Salesforce, but has lived a lot of different lives. Graduating from the University of South Carolina with a degree in anthropology, he's been an archaeologist, a developer, a project manager, an African policy analyst, and a settler of Catan. A study abroad semester at American University in Cairo opened him to a bright and fascinating world, introduced him to his wife, Marcie, and changed his life. He traveled to 5 continents to support the U.S. Department of State and its embassies abroad, including a long stint in post-war Sudan, where one of his 3 children was born. When he's not busy being a dad, building apps, or turning wood into expensive sawdust in his woodshop, he's traveling the world with his family, giving his kids the worldview he craved at their age. He lives in Haymarket, Virginia, with easy access to multiple international airports. You ready? Let's roam. Welcome back, everybody, to the Roaming Yeti podcast. Today, I'm excited again to talk with Mitch Lynch. We're actually going to talk Egypt. This was not a subject I was expecting to talk about, but I didn't know I was going to find an expert, but I'm really excited that I did. So you, Mitch, first of all, I always jump into questions without thanking people for coming because I get so excited about talking about it. Thank you for coming. I appreciate your time. If I understand it correctly, you lived there and went to school in Egypt, sort of. So how long? Give us a little bit of that background.
Yeah, sure. It is literally like my favorite. It's my favorite topic. Yeah, so when I was in college at the University of South Carolina, I had applied for this national security scholarship and told the government all about how I would study in Egypt to, learn Arabic and all about current events and foreign policy in the Middle East. It was 2004, so Iraq was big, Afghanistan was big, Yemen, all the different things that were happening in the Middle East, and what I was really doing was extending my interest into archaeology, which I was an anthropology major, so I was trying to be an archaeologist, and they gave me money to go and study in Cairo. And I thought, oh man, I fooled them. I fooled them. And so 2004, I went off for a semester and got this awesome opportunity to take Arabic and Middle Eastern history and Egyptology and live in Cairo, and it was just amazing. And it was really just a semester, but it turned out to just be the most like important pivotal moment in my whole life. Getting there and being in the energy of the city. I mean, Cairo is just this melting pot of all sorts of people that are just from everywhere, let alone Egypt. And so being there, being in at the American University in Cairo, where I studied, I got to meet and have classes with experts that I had grown up living, reading their books, and now I was taking their class.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I met another study abroad student there at the time, and we got engaged before we left. Still happily married now, 17 years later. But so Marcie and I met when we were at Cairo studying in the same survival Arabic class, and survived we did. So, but I've returned there for work a few times. We took our honeymoon there in 2006, and then we kind of disappeared because we started having kids. We lived in the region for a little bit in Sudan, and then had kids, and we came back to the States and really didn't leave much. But I came through for work several times. It's just a really great place, but the Arab Spring occurred. It politically became very unstable.
Okay.
And we decided after COVID, we were going to just do as much travel as we could possibly afford.
Exactly.
So the first thing we did, we took the kids, we booked a trip to Europe, and we did a 10 country road trip through Western Europe. And before we left, because this happened to us before we left, we said, let's go ahead and buy tickets to Egypt. Because if we don't, we're going to get back from Europe with no money, and we won't be brave enough to buy the airfare. So we buy the if we buy the airfare now, we're committed, and we have to go. So we did, and yeah, we went. We did 10 days from end to end in December, right before Christmas.
Okay.
So it was a really good time. It was right before their busy season, which is Christmas and
Okay.
on. So it really the timing all worked out. But
I guess it's better to go that time of year. It's a little cooler. What
yeah,
is that the
um,
reason it's busier or
it is, yes. And apparently, if you're Russian, or actually, there's a large number of Ukrainian tourists that come to Egypt every year, Russian. That actually, because of the war, is kind of down right now.
hmm
But Europe has picked up the extra supply of airfares to Cairo, and so yeah, apparently people go there for their winter break,
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, and you can hardly get a ticket. But right before Christmas, there's this really cool lull between, like, if you want to go between Thanksgiving and Christmas,
Okay.
find a week or two in there. I bet there are actually even deals if you want to if you do like a tour, or if you're going by yourself. Um, there was definitely a little window of opportunity. But yeah, the summer, the like summer here is just, it's so unbearably hot there.
Yeah.
But you'll find yourself getting chilly at night in December, even if you're sweating at some pyramid during the day.
Yeah, I guess it does. It stays pretty, but I would think, yeah, definitely a desert that you think it doesn't stay hot at night usually, right?
No, as a matter of fact, the desert can't hold any of that heat in. It
Okay.
immediately, as soon as the sun's gone, it just immediately starts to freeze up, and yeah, it gets quite chilly at night. But it also makes it really pleasant,
Right.
to be out, and it's never really humid. There is a humidity around the Nile, but yeah, it's a nice. They say it's a dry heat. It is kind of a dry heat. You won't know you're sweating unless you're just like genetically inclined to sweat at all times. You'll just know because your hair will start to stiffen up, like you put hairspray in it, and it's
Okay.
the salt like crystallizing on your hair
Oh my
follicle as
gosh.
you're sweating. So you have to be really careful.
Yeah. So what is it that made you fall in love with Egypt and is Cairo where you spent most of your time?
Yeah, I mean, I traveled around in my student days. Marcie and I took a couple of different trips to Alexandria on the coast,
Okay.
and that is a really nice, laid back seaside town. There's not like a ton to do. It's just a nice place to walk and meander and just sort of experience street life. But it's a nice, sleepy kind of place. You can take a train or fly. Um, the Luxor's amazing. I've been there a couple of times. We went there in December. It was sort of a must. If you're going to go to Egypt, you can spend your entire time in Cairo, but you're missing out on the ability to see more than pyramids and museums
Okay.
and the city. So Luxor is just chock full of amazing temples, all the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, the Valley of the Nobles. there are all these funerary temples on the West Bank over there as well, with the tombs that are just, I mean, you'll feel like you're on a movie set,
Oh,
like
wow.
DeMille, like you're waiting for Charlton Heston to come around the corner for his people to be let go, right?
Yeah.
It's just amazing, and you can crawl around in all the tombs, and um, I mean, everything from King Tut to, nobles that you've never heard of. I got to tell you, all of the tombs are just amazing. They're all, beautifully inscribed or painted. They can sometimes be easy to get into. Sometimes they can be hard to get into. So, usually you could ask around or ask a guide or look at a tour guide in terms of ease on how to get into and out of, because I'm out of shape. I had forgotten about that until I got there again. um, but Luxor has all that great, wonderful, big temples to wander around in. Luxor's also kind of a nice little sleepy town. I spent Ramadan there one time, and they threw this big, huge. I mean, it was just like the whole town came out and had this massive street festival, a feast, and it was just amazing vibes the whole time. But usually it's just sort of this nice little casual, place, and from there you can go all over. You can go down to Aswan. There's more temples on the Nile. A lot of people they start like a river cruise in
Okay.
Luxor, and then go down the river to see all the temples. You can go to Abu Simbel. That's the big temple that they had on the edge of the Nile with the four big statues of Ramses. They're just massive. And Nefertiti has a temple there too. We also took a day when we were in Luxor. We took a day trip to Dendera, and literally the hotel arranged a nice little car and guide, and we drove hours out or north up into sort of rural Egypt, and so you get to see all of that rural life in play right on the other side of the window, and you can see these amazingly preserved temples.
Wow.
So there's just a lot of options and a lot of things to kind of get your attention. If anybody that's listening is into diving, Sharm el Sheikh out in the Red Sea is gorgeous. It's a resort town. There's not much else out there for that. But I mean, when I was there, I had a cold when I was a kid. So I couldn't go diving or go out on the boats with everybody else. But like, I walked out on a dock and just looked down, and it's shark this and yellowfish that, and these blue things swimming around. I mean, you can see all the way down.
Wow.
You can snorkel and explore shipwrecks. Go diving. It's some of the best diving in the world, from what I've heard. So it can be an amazing spot. There are a lot of good diving places in Egypt in the Red Sea, but that's sort of the big one, I think. So just a little something for everybody, really.
Not just desert.
Not just desert, yeah. And not all just Egypt, ancient Egypt either. If you're, in so inclined, there are parts of Cairo that are like all sort of like Islamic or Coptic sections where you can explore all the old mosques and bathhouses and all these really like classically, Ottoman palaces and things from years gone by, right? All this wonderful Arab architecture, and actually, as an American, you'd be sort of like getting something back, because some of our foreign aid money is actually spent preserving and conserving those sites for as part of our relationship with Egypt.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, there's this great institution called the American Research Center in Egypt, and I interned there. They do a lot of Egyptology, but they also do a lot of Coptic and Islamic art conservation. So they save a lot of these places, a lot of these old mosques that were built 800 years ago, so that they're there for the Egyptian people, and they're amazing to go through. So there's that. There's shopping. It's very European in Cairo, so there's a lot of like really, pretty neighborhoods that you can kind of go and wander and explore. Lots of good shopping, lots and lots of good eating. Uh, Not just Arab food, but if you're into Thai fusion, or you want to go and eat Italian one night, they've just got it all. So um, yeah, it's hard not to find what you're looking for in Cairo. But
Now, so I mean, you've already named a lot of things. So if this is someone's first trip, what would you advise of the touristy things they sort of have to do?
so there, I mean, you have to go to the pyramids in Giza, outside of Cairo. Um, I mean, you have to see the only existing, still standing wonder of the world. Of the seven ancient wonders of the world, the pyramids of Giza or the Great Pyramid is the only one still, still standing. They are bigger than you think. They're bigger than you're told. They're bigger than I can tell you, and you won't understand it until you're in their shadow. Just how massive they are and what that means for what humans can accomplish,
Hmm.
even if it's 5,000, 4,500 years ago. Um, Something that I heard this last year preparing Cleopatra. Um, Ancient Egypt is so ancient that Cleopatra is actually closer in age to us than she is Khufu, who built the Great Pyramid.
Whoa.
There's less time between us and her than there is between her and the Great Pyramids being built, and the Sphinx and all those old kingdom monuments. So that's how old they are, and the fact that they're there and that you can explore them, you can go in them. Um, it is not something for the faint of heart. So so I think I almost died this last trip trying
Oh
to go in.
no.
I'm so out of shape. I was like, you go in and it's just like, it's like climbing a never-ending staircase,
Okay.
hunched over at a 45-degree angle. And so,
Ugh. You're not selling me well here on this one now.
but you can sit outside and wait for them to come out at the other end. I had forgotten about it when I was a kid. I had already done this, and then I'm like, oh yeah, kids, let's go, because our trip was me, my wife, and our three teenagers. Let's go in. Okay, they all went because they're all young and spry, and then here I come way behind them, and huffing and puffing and collapsing in the burial chamber, thinking, you know what? It, it's a burial chamber. Just bury me here.
It's good
I mean,
enough for them. It's good enough for me.
yeah, yeah. So it is not for the faint of heart. The interiors of the three are a little different, and depending on which one's open, which ones are open, you might have a different time of it, but they're mostly all, very confined spaces. It's a little muggy. Um, so, it's not for everybody. But if you want to say you've done it, then take your opportunity there. But you should go to Cairo. You should go to the pyramids, the Egyptian Museum in the heart of downtown. The museums in Egypt are going through a transformation. They're
Okay.
moving around the collections. They've built new museums. So if you're so the original one was the Egyptian Museum in the middle of town, but and that's where you go for like King Tut and just about everything. Everything was just in this one building. And honestly, what was really cool is I collect old travel guides, and this is from 1908. It's a Baedeker guide for Egypt, and
Oh,
it's like a,
wow.
but I took it with me. Yeah, they still have the collections in the same place they did when they opened the place. It is the Egyptian Museum is like a museum for museum aficionados, because it has relatively gone unchanged since the Victorian age when it was
Mm.
built. So same exact display cases, I mean, the same little placards that are written on everything, I mean, they haven't had to rewrite them, right? There's some of them are in French because it was started by a French archaeologist. They haven't updated them, right? So it was funny how relevant this old travel guide was. But you'll never go to the Louvre or the British Museum or any major museum anywhere in the world and it still be the way it was a
Right.
hundred years ago. It's an experience.
Wow.
Its collection is getting though kind of split up. They were even packing it up while we were there. A lot of it's going out to the big museum, the Grand Egyptian Museum that's opening near the pyramids.
Mm.
Um, and this thing is the largest museum ever constructed, and they're basically taking most of the major collections, like all of King Tut's tomb stuff, and they're finally getting all the space needed to display everything because all this stuff's been crammed into this one museum basement for 100 years. They were actually like having to re-excavate it
Oh
stuff
my
they hadn't seen since they packed it away in the 20s. So um, they're finally now conserving it and now have enough space to lay it all out. And that is in the process of opening right now.
God.
So
Okay.
if you're going to Egypt in the summer, this will, I mean, they're already having limited like soft opening type stuff going on. It's going to be amazing. And you should, just like they say with the Louvre, plan on it being a day event. Like that's going to be what you're going to get here, right? You're going to have a massive amount of things that you could spend time looking at. Um, or maybe, go to the pyramids in the morning before it gets hot, before it gets super busy,
Hmm.
because it takes time for tour groups to get themselves together enough to get out to the pyramids from breakfast. And so you can go early, see it, and then before it gets hot, maybe transition over to the Grand Egyptian Museum. That would be probably a really good day. Um, there's also the Mena House Hotel, which is right there in the shadow of the pyramid, of the pyramids, kind of in between these two things.
Hmm.
So it's a great spot for a really beautiful lunch. It's expensive, but it's a really nice place. Um, there's even another couple of museums that are still like where they're again trying to spread out the collections.
Hmm.
The National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. That's where you go if you want to see every royal mummy
Oh wow.
that's ever been collected, and except for King Tut, who is still he's the only mummy, the only pharaoh still in his tomb in Luxor. Um, but the National Museum of Ancient Civilization, Egyptian Civilization has those. That's in Cairo as well. But beyond museums, um, you have to do going back to the pyramids. People are on the fence sometimes about whether or not you want to take camel rides at the pyramids. I do it every time. It's it's like going to Disney and having to go on It's a Small World,
Right.
except 1,001 times. Like like it's an infinitely more memorable experience. I can't even explain it. We had pictures of my wife pregnant with my daughter on camel at the pyramids, and then this year we actually got to take our daughter back, and now we all have that same picture, but
Right.
it's all of us as all of them as teenagers. So just a really great experience.
Yeah. Makes a good memory.
Mm-hmm.
And do you, so I know there's river cruises and stuff too. Would you recommend those on a trip or?
Yeah, you can take Felucca, the wooden sailboats, and you can probably do them in Luxor, but I've only done them in Cairo.
Mm.
But that's a really great way to see the city out on the Nile. It gets quiet out on the Nile. It's very noisy and busy in the city. So the Felucca rides, you can usually just sort of go and arrange for that like on the day, unless it's really a busy season, and you can kind of book those online in advance through different tour companies. Um, the main river cruises that people do are the like where they take multiple days down the Nile
Mm.
from Luxor to Cairo. I have not done that, but that is that is a bucket list item because you get to stop off at, all sorts of different monuments, and you see sort of it's like the behind the scenes backstage tour of Egypt, because you get
Okay.
to see life, going through, parts of Egypt that aren't touristy. Um, and that's what they were doing on in the Poirot film, Murder on the Nile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's essentially the experience that you can get.
Yeah, that was the first time I sort of saw some of those um temples, or they consider temples,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. And yeah, and that and I have to admit, Moon Knight too. We watched Moon Knight. I
Yes.
was like, all right, I'm ready to go to Cairo.
Yeah, there was a lot of that really hit home when they were in Cairo. I'm like, oh, never seen any warlords, but they kind of got the vibe right for the city.
Yeah, it was, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was like, oh, okay, that's not what I was expecting, but it was it was definitely like, that looks fun. Yeah, minus the warlords and the, you know.
Yeah. But if you remember The Mummy with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, like that's the vibe you're going to get when you go to the Egyptian Museum, because it's that time period, and you're just it's just like going back in time. They got that movie literally got that one right.
That one
So
got it right.
yeah.
Very nice. Um, Food wise, you've said there's a lot of like, what do you recommend that you have to try?
So the big dish that I would get in trouble for not mentioning is called kosheri, and it is like the quintessential like street food for Egypt, and actually it's mostly an Egyptian thing. It's like eating a New York hot dog on the streets of Manhattan. Kosheri is like this. It's a miscellaneous pastas and lentils,
Mm,
like all sorts of different miscellaneous bits and pieces of pasta and lentils thrown in, a little rice, and then it's like a tomato sauce on top, and then they throw I don't remember if it says chickpeas, but then it's like crispy onions are kind of sprinkled on the top,
mm.
and it's very filling. It's super dirt cheap. There are a couple of restaurants where you can go in and actually sit and have some. You can also find it sometimes like out on like literally street vendors, and um, I mean it's a one bowl dish that is just the Egyptian comfort food by definition.
Is it
Uh,
cold or served cold or hot?
it's served hot.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, there are all kinds of street food. I mean, down to like getting like a baked sweet potato, from a donkey drawn cart, and he'll have a little charcoal oven on the back of the cart making, sweet potatoes. Um, but most of the hotels will, if you inquire, they'll make Egyptian breakfast foods for you.
Hmm.
Sometimes they'll be out on like a buffet. There's usually a big hotel buffet, but you can ask them specifically to make falafel, which is called tameya in Egypt, but they know the word falafel. Um, they make something called fool, which is like a bean paste that you eat
Okay.
with pita bread.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just amazing. My daughters like just ate it up every morning. And what was great about that was the Egyptian hotel staff loved seeing us coming, and then we're like shoving more and more Egyptian foods onto the table and telling us how they eat it. Oh, we'll take some of your falafel and put it in the pita, and get a little tahini, and make a little sandwich out of. Oh, here, put this other stuff, this other sauce on it. It's a little spicier, and I mean, you'll endear yourself immediately to any Egyptian trying to eat some good Egyptian, staples like falafel. And sure, it's fried, but it's not that fried. It's all chickpeas. It's all good for
Exactly.
you.
You're on
um,
vacation. It doesn't count.
yeah, these are yeah. Wait. Nobody's watching. Nobody's watching the points here. So
No.
but they also love sweets,
Okay.
honey, honey covered desserts and pastries. Also, I mean, everybody knows baklava.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks they baklava originated in their country.
Right.
The Egyptians are no different. If you go to Turkey, they'll say it. If you go to Greece, they'll say it. I've been all those places, and just remove yourself from the politics of origin and just imbibe.
And just enjoy it.
Yes, just enjoy it. But yeah, kosher. I mean, I'm sorry, not kosher, but yeah, baklava, and then things like baklava in like 5,000 other shapes or combinations. It's all got pistachios and phyllo dough and honey, and it's all amazing. So
Mm, sounds really good.
yeah.
Definitely go for that. Um, any best kept secrets that we can share?
So um like, well, one, be cautious around being told there's a papyrus museum that you should see. Or there are a lot of things that have the word museum or institute thrown into them, and they're really just tourist shops. They're all just souvenir shops. So a lot of people get sucked in. I mean, I've seen it a bunch, but just be adamant with your taxi cab driver. No, I don't want to go to your brother-in-law's Paris Museum. I don't want to go and look at your jewelry factory or your perfume factory.
Mm,
You're not in the market for one of those things. Yeah, don't act like, or don't think you're going to a museum per se or an institute. It's a shop.
gotcha.
But get outside of the main pyramids in Cairo. There, Saqqara is the step pyramid of Zoser at Saqqara, and it is gorgeous. Since I was a student there, they have been conserving and cleaning it up. It was covered in sand and
Hmm,
had been kind of crumbling. They've spent 15 years cleaning that up. It really only just got reopened, like fully, just in the last year. And
okay.
it's an amazing site. It's within an hour of Cairo. You can get, your driver or your tour, you'll find plenty of ways to get there. It's not nearly as crowded as Giza. Everybody goes to Giza. Fewer people go to other pyramids, but Saqqara is the first pyramid.
Okay.
It's the oldest, and it's gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning. Um, get outside of Luxor. Dendera is a beautiful temple. It's one of the most well painted temples in Egypt. I mean, the same pigments that were there thousands of years ago are still on the ceilings. They're beautiful. Um, there's not another temple quite like it. So, definitely try to maybe get a little off the beaten path and explore something that, just because it's King Tut doesn't mean it's going to be great.
Right.
King Tut's tomb in the Valley of Kings is the least adorned, smallest, underwhelming place. I didn't even go there this last time. We took a picture outside next to the sign and then walked
Hmm.
away. It's just not interesting. Um, Something else could be very, very pretty and very, very, I mean, just memorable, right? Or quintessential about going into an Egyptian tomb. There should be carvings and inscriptions and, brightly colored relief
Hmm.
carved into the wall, and you'll see all those things in other tombs. So don't feel like you always have to go to the highlight.
The
Pay
main
extra.
one.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's great advice because with crowds and stuff, it's probably a little easier to go to the other ones.
yeah, and there's an upcharge. There's an upcharge for like the most popular ones, but I mean, I didn't do that at all this last time, and did not regret a single tomb we went into. So
That's good to know.
yeah.
Um, and you were saying about so we have to make sure we don't end up at the wrong shopping. How do we make sure we're at the correct shopping?
Yeah. So right off the bat, don't don't feel obligated to buy things at the monument that you're at.
Okay.
Like at the pyramids, you're going to be sold every like left, right, and center. Like everybody's trying to sell you something. If you see it there and you like it, buy it. But if not, like that thing is literally going to be in every other place. Um, so yeah, don't necessarily feel pressured into buying things at the monuments, but go to some of the souks. Cairo has a very famous market called the Khana Khalili, and it is just a like the one of the oldest markets in the world, and it's just this little warren of little passageways, and everything is shops and lots of different things that you might find there. Reproductions. You will not find anything authentic. Don't
Okay.
Nobody should ever go there and think they're going to buy real anything. If you accidentally do, you will probably be going to jail.
Right. Right.
So, but there are some really lovely reproductions at the Egyptian Museum. I bought a few things there that were really nicely, high quality. Um, the new Grand Egyptian Museum, I saw a preview of what their gift shop is like, and I just might want to go back to Cairo so I can go there. Um, but the one thing though, definitely the Khana Khalili, you'll bargain, expect to bargain.
Hmm.
Don't expect to get a bargain. Um, like you might want to do a little bit of haggling, but the experience is really more cultural. It's not actually meant for you to really get a deal. It's already going to be a steal. Um, and they're hurting really bad. The economy is so terrible. Their currency is just tanked.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so the American dollar is really super strong on the Egyptian market. As a result, my advice is haggle for the experience, haggle because it shows some respect for the process with the shopkeep. Don't expect to just get a really I've been over tipping everywhere I go. um, just because again, be generous because they're obviously in a place of hurt. It's already going to be really affordable to shop. um, there's another market across from the Kanakali called the Bobzuela. They do a lot of fabrics and carpets and rugs and just all sorts of wonderful textile work. So
Hmm.
you'll find that as you go through any of these markets, there are sections, and it's like all gold or all souvenirs or all clothing or all spices. Get out there and explore all the little, warrens and passageways to just see what there is. And then, yeah, make an offer. There are oftentimes like vintage items. Like I have this sign back here, the Coca-Cola sign,
Yeah, I can
written in.
see that. That's cool.
Yeah, I picked that up in the Khalili. They had like this vintage sign shop, and they had old records and old photos and old, tin signs. And so I was like, yeah, that is totally me. I have to take that home for what it was like probably at 15-20 bucks.
Yeah.
Um, but also there's a little island in the middle of the Nile in Cairo called Zamalek.
Mm.
And it's this my dorm was there when I was a student. It's not there anymore, but it's like a very it's just this really nice quiet neighborhood in the middle of busy Cairo, and it's full of restaurants and shops and places to sort of meander around and do window shopping or just have a coffee or go to a bookstore or buy handmade arts and crafts. And there's just like a limitless number of things that we've picked up there, and it's a very walkable part of Cairo. I actually have always suggested people stay somewhere in Zamalek at
Okay.
one of the hotels right there in Zamalek on the island because it's quiet. You can get a good night's sleep, but there's also plenty of stuff that you should feel safe and secure walking to, even in the evenings. And you're not going to just get stuck in your hotel, which is what happens in some of the big high-rise hotels on the Nile. There's nothing around them.
Gotcha.
except like neighborhoods of apartment buildings, and there's nothing to really walk around and do or eat at. So
Right. So we know where to, is there like a quintessential souvenir to bring home that people do or you would suggest they look for or
yeah, a lot of people really like papyrus, painted, papyrus reed paper with different scenes on it. It's not my thing. I tend to buy a lot of pottery
mm,
where I go, or if I can grab vintage items that are from that place. I love that stuff. I have though in the past bought a lot of like hand painted like watercolors
mm,
of Egyptian like Nile scenes and different tombs, or I'm sorry, temple scenes. There's a lot of handcrafts. Um, but the one thing I've done since I was a student, and I even made my kids do it, is always buy scarabs. You can buy lots of little reproductions,
hmm
but like little scarabs that you can buy handfuls of them, right? And just in case you forget to bring a gift home to somebody, it's just like really great, cheap, oh well, I got you this.
I got
And
you.
they're really cool. They're hand carved and
Oh
they've got
wow.
hieroglyphs on them. And um but yeah, scarabs are kind of like our backup.
Your go-to.
Yeah, I still have like a whole tin of them from my like 2004 travels somewhere too. So, but I still bought more when we were there. So they're just fun to throw in the bag and have along for the ride. But yeah, if you like Egyptian art or iconography, there's just so much stuff to choose from. You'll never be at a loss
Right.
for
So
options.
bring an extra bag.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of brass work. They do a lot of really pretty lanterns with like stained glass in them, different kinds of shapes and sizes. There is something for just about everybody in Cairo or in Egypt. So
Um, how much language-wise, I know it's if I remember correctly, it's Arabic and some French, I believe. Is in like how much of a language issue is there? Like, do you need to learn Arabic? You know.
yeah, I mean, for getting around, if we don't take into consideration what people might think about somebody traveling to their country that doesn't take time to learn a few phrases, you can get around in Egypt with pretty much pure English. Most Egyptians at some point learn English. And because 80-90% of their whole economy is based on tourism, they're pretty well like aligned to the idea that we need to, like, this is an international language of communicating with people that support us and come here to learn. And so you can get around with English. But we went to 11 countries last year, plus then we went to Egypt. Every country's language, I did a little guide for my kids, and it was all of like those basic expressions of, hello, how are you? Yes, no, thank you, please, sorry. That's like should be the first word anybody learns in any language is sorry. But while I had forgotten a lot of Arabic and it all kind of came back. I mean, just knowing a little bit.
hmm
Like I've been in France before and I used to speak French, and you'd speak a little French, they'd hear your American accent and they'd immediately start talking in English because they don't want you butchering their language.
Right.
They just didn't want to go there. You know what? Life is
Like,
too short.
please stop.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But an Egyptian, I mean, their eyes light up when you say good morning to them, and you can say sabah khair, or shukran, thank you. They just, as soon as you've made the effort, like you have won them over. It is just the most easy way to make a temporary friend ever. So know some numbers, know some of those please, thank yous, know how to ask how they are. There are different ways of saying it for different times a day. And if you get it right, again, biggest friends ever. If you can say good morning versus good evening, yeah, it'll, and like you'll never come across a menu that doesn't have the English on it, but
Okay.
it doesn't hurt to learn a little bit about, drinks and, maybe some basic food names and stuff like that. But I would say that more like that conversational across the desk with the person at your hotel or the taxi cab driver or the person checking you out at a shop, like anything you can do to throw a couple of words in there. Yeah, you just make an instant connection.
Yeah.
Instant connection.
That's I think that's I think there's always the need to try and,
Only,
and make an effort, but I'm
yeah.
terrible at picking up languages, so it's always a struggle for me, but I always have some written down somewhere for myself.
You just got to make the effort, and you'll figure out quick if they appreciate it or not. I went to a beer garden in Germany one time and we tried a little bit of German and he was just like not having it, just nope, not today. Not today, Americans. just order in English. It's
Yeah,
fine.
it's fine. Just point. It's great.
That's right.
Huh?
Also
Oh,
like
go
Google,
ahead.
I was gonna say Google Translate, you can get that stuff offline now.
Yeah.
And have, if you really needed to get your point across, say something, have it read back out loud in Arabic or whatever. Those tools are all very handy in a pinch when you need something specific, like, hey, he's bleeding, where's the pharmacy, or get a doctor, like, you might want to be specific about that. So, um, but yeah.
Definitely. It's a good time to pull out the Google for us.
That's
Um,
right.
how do you suggest getting around, or especially in Cairo? Is it walkable? Is there public transportation, taxis, rideshare?
Yeah. I've done a lot of taxis, even with my kids. I was really, by the way, I didn't mention this. I was really nervous about going to Cairo or going back to Egypt with my kids. I thought the closer we got to the trip, oh man, what am I doing? And this can't be safe. I'm thinking, oh, it was all great and fun when I was a student, and it was
Hmm.
just me running around. I put myself at risk in some situations and I didn't even know it, or I did, and it didn't matter. But now I've got my kids, like it's different. Man, my kids, they're walking around Cairo, jumping in front of traffic like they'd lived there for 10 years and wiggling in between cars in the street. Um, we were running around in multiple taxis because we're a family of five, so that was going to be a problem. The taxis are really tiny. They're really, kind of dirty and not super, clean, but they're an experience and they're pretty affordable. They're just hard sometimes to find people that want to take you in a certain direction at a certain time of day.
Okay.
I was like trying to like order taxis right there on the street with my kids, and they didn't want to. Yeah, we don't want to go in the middle of town this afternoon. If you just need to go somewhere local, fine. But you can use Uber.
Okay.
There's an We used Uber several times. Uber did not exist in 2004, so that was a real nice thing to find, especially when you're trying to get to and from your hotel at like the middle of the night when everybody's flights take off.
Mm.
There aren't taxis just always roaming, but you can order an Uber. There's also an app called Kareem, and it's like a Cairo based, like a knockoff of Uber that's really, really popular and really safe. A lot of people use that when they're in Cairo. So Kareem. But there are a couple of different types of taxis. I also arranged for like airport shuttles with Hertz, and I'll provide you a link because I thought it was phenomenal. I've used it in Paris and I've used it in Cairo. You can just order and have Hertz arrange for a driver to come pick you up and take you to the airport or back.
Mm.
So it's sort of ordered for you in advance, and they just show up, and it's already prepaid. You don't have to negotiate.
Nice.
Um, yeah, but parts of Cairo are super walkable. Especially once you get into a neighborhood where there are going to be things you're going to want to do, you can usually walk around pretty easily. There are some big streets though where it takes some time and effort to try to get across. That's sometimes a little stressful, especially since it's not like people follow all the rules all the time
Right.
in a big traffic circle that's like 7 cars wide. But you can do it, and nobody wants to hit a foreigner. It's too much paperwork. So Cairo also expanded its subway system. It has a subway. It's the
Mm.
only, up until probably 10 or 15 years ago, it was the only subway in Africa. And it's not great, but so sometimes there's parts of Paris that I wouldn't want to go see on, on too. Um, so yeah, so a lot of transportation. And if you ever wanted, you could probably always arrange for a car to go and do certain things with your hotel.
Okay.
We actually did that with the pyramids. We just said, hey, tomorrow we want to go to the pyramids. Can you arrange a car service for us? And yeah, no problem. And I just tacked it onto the hotel bill, and they showed up. They stayed with us all day. We
Oh,
didn't have to
nice.
worry about anything. It was real easy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. So what and I'm the overpacker in the family, so I asked this carefully, but like what should you wear or pack with you on your trip to Egypt?
Layers, you know,
There's
yeah. Um, all my girls always take, wear things with sleeves. Shorts are not really something that you want to be wearing in a predominantly Muslim country. It's just sort of a little, you're putting yourself at risk there. Um, just because it's, seen as a little bit um not disrespectful, but it's not expected behavior.
okay.
And so women tend to get a lot of attention when they don't cover up. That said, having on a t-shirt, some linen slacks, if you're going in some place and you need to cover your shoulders a little more, just take a scarf. You'll all, everybody, even I wear a scarf when I'm there just all the time. It's just a nice thing to have and cover up with when you need a little bit more cover from the sun or a little less exposure to Egyptian catcalling. Um, but but yeah, it's just all about layers because it will get, you might get chilly at night walking around after dinner, but that same exact scarf you're going to wear then might help you stay out of the sun in the middle of the day. um, Always have a hat, sunglasses, good pair of walking shoes. Something that's kind of closed toe is probably best. Sandals, I mean, the streets can be very dirty, so
Mhm.
it won't be a great experience for you if you wear a lot of open-toed stuff. Um, it would help to, I mean, we brought some pretty good walking shoes with us for, you know, climbing around in tombs and temples
Right.
and all that. But yeah, you will walk a good bit. Yeah. So make sure your feet are ready for it. Um, you're going to sweat through things. Don't expect to wear them multiple days in a row, maybe without a good wash. So
Very good. Well, this has been super informational. I always ask a few questions at the end that I do not send ahead of time. Have a little pop quiz.
uh-oh.
Um, they're very easy. It's quick and painless. But what do you have a favorite road trip snack?
So I like chewy candy, and I will find a taffy or a in every country I go to. I will bring a few with me, but I will always find some kind of weird chewy taffy candy. I love pistachios. Uh, a lot of countries do pistachios differently, so sometimes you'll find some weird stuff. Um, but chips are another one. There's a different kind of chip everywhere you go, and some of them are terrible.
But you have to try them. We do it all the time. Like, oh, that
Yeah,
sounds terrible. Let's get it.
yeah, let's get it. Yeah. I can remember like as a kid walking around Epcot, and it was like every time we went to a new pavilion, you'd get a different snack food. And like my dad came back with cuttlefish at like the Japan
Oh,
pavilion one time, and I'm like, not even a little. No. But I've been in like Mexico and tried like toasted grasshoppers. They're great. It just sort of depends. But yeah, chips. There's always a chip somewhere.
very good. I mean, it sounds like you just had a dream trip, but do you have a bucket list dream trip?
Yeah, the money's all been spent. So we're not doing anything this year. But yeah, our big bucket list trip after Europe last year, I learned about the Tour de Mont Blanc, and it's this like 100-mile circuit around Mont Blanc in the Alps, and
Mm.
you walk it 10 miles a day, and in between you stay in all these little like hostel like B&Bs up in the mountains, and you just walk through the French and Swiss countryside all day, and they cart your stuff from one hotel to the next one for you. And so you just show up later on in the day and have beer and wine outside and eat cheese from the region. Oh yeah, no, I'm totally doing the Tour de Mont. It sounds glorious.
That that would sound even more glorious if I didn't have to walk 10 miles a day, but at least I'd burn off the calories, so that's fair.
Well, some of them.
Some of them.
Only some of them.
No, that does sound like a lot of fun and definite
Drinking
challenge.
skills are alive. Just that's what I'm imagining. Just with wine in one hand and cheese in the other.
And some chocolate.
Yeah,
So, what is on if you're on a road trip or you're flying you're on a flight, what do you have on your playlist? Are you a music, an audiobook, podcast? What are you
yeah.
listening to?
Well, so every trip, like I don't know, that the playlist seems to vary, but and it doesn't seem to be different too much from like what I listen to all the time. It's all 80s rock, maybe even older. Got to get some. Like I remember being in like some temple in Egypt this last time, and I had like AirPods in, and I was listening to the Doobie Brothers. It's just a different kind of experience. But there's this one song by Jason Mraz that I always listen to when I travel. He has a song called "I'm Yours,"
Hmm.
and I'm not necessarily a big Jason Mraz guy, but it was the welcome song for KLM Airlines for about a decade while I was doing all my international travel for work. That's what they would play as you got on the plane. It's what they played when you would get off the plane or wait to get off. And I just get that song in my head and I have to listen to it. but but yeah, that's sort of my like travel anthem somehow
Excellent. I
after all the
love
chaos.
that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for all this amazing information. I know people, if they're looking to go, if they weren't before, they probably will now. It sounds like a fun trip. So I really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It's an amazing place. I can't sell it enough. It is more attainable, whether you're on a tour or whether you're going, on your own. It's more attainable than people think.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like that. So you'll be getting your check from Egyptian Tourism Board, I'm sure, very soon.
Right. I'll look for it.
All right. Thanks a lot.
You got it.
Thanks again to Mitch for sharing his expertise and all the information on Egypt. And thank you for listening. I hope these episodes inspire you to get out there and roam, even in your own neighborhood. Please subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you like what we're doing here, please leave a review and a rating. Also, to help support us, please head to Yeti to shop to pick up some Roaming Yeti merch. Talk to you soon and keep roaming.